had situations to work, with, and have engagement with some, government bodies. I know that there's a lot of data that is collected around, farming, dreaming up something, thinking about it and being able to execute and see the impact your work has on people. There's a reason it's called a system. It has so many parts. And I'm going to start from my own story.
Food doesn't just appear on our plates, it moves through a system. And the strength of that system determines not just availability, but accessibility, quality, and sustainability. Welcome to the. My name is Deborah Dairo, and today we're exploring from farm to fork, building scalable food systems in Africa. Across the continent, agriculture is often viewed only at the production level. But real transformation happens when we connect the entire value chain, from farmers to processors to distribution and ultimately to the consumer. Joining me today is Mr. Olagoke Balogun, the CEO and co-founder of SoFresh, one of Nigeria's leading healthy food chains. Through his work, he has built a powerful bridge between agriculture and the modern consumer market, creating a scalable, sustainable food business that reflects what the future of food systems in Africa can look like. Mr. Olagoke, welcome to the Group Podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
I feel so excited to have you on board. Really, I thought about this day and I told myself that, I have to ginger. So once again, it's really a privilege to have you. You built SoFresh. Everybody knows SoFresh. Even a toddler knows SoFresh. Mommy, I want SoFresh parfait. How does that feel?
It feels absolutely amazing. Sometimes it feels overwhelming. Of course, dreaming up something, thinking about it and being able to execute and see the impact your work has on people and people, the team, first of all, the team that work with me, about 150 people, seeing the impact, the economic impact on them, seeing the impact on customers. We sell food, but beyond food, we sell nutrition, we sell, happiness. When people feed well, feed right, they are happy, they live healthier lives, they live productive lives. So seeing that impact in people, at different levels is very fulfilling. But of course, running a business in any economy, not to talk of Nigerian economy, can get, really tough, really overwhelming at times. So yeah, it's a mixed feeling, but ultimately, if I sum it up, it's been an amazing journey for 16 years. It'll be 16 years sometime this year. So yeah, it's been a really amazing journey.
Wow, 16. Let me clock to that. Wow. Wow, once again. I need to say congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
It's really not
thank
easy,
you.
but when you look at the impact that you're making, even in feeding the world, because you're one of the contributors of the agenda to feed the nation. It's what it's. Now let's talk about the employment that you give to people who are actually working for you. That is truly impactful, very impactful. Now today we're talking about food systems and how to scale it beyond Africa. You are somebody who has done that, currently doing that, and I think you rightly be in the best position to have this conversation. Where do you think the Nigerian food system is currently the strongest, and how do you think we can scale?
Okay, that's such an interesting and probably a difficult question to tackle. In the short conversation we're having, because there's a reason it's called a system. It has so many parts, and I'm going to start from my own story. To illustrate, to illustrate my point around this conversation. So when we're going to start So Fresh, there was nothing like it. I didn't find a store that was selling fresh meals, not preserved, blend on the spot, made on the spot. And so I was looking for a lot of data. For example, I was looking for storage data. So what are the right temperatures to store fruits? What are the right temperatures and all of that? um, and I didn't find. I remember then, just around that period, 2010, Shoprite had just opened in Nigeria. So I did, I used to go to, Shoprite, try to speak to some of their, reps in the fruit section to say, where do you guys get the supplies from? How do you store it? How do you preserve it from the market and all of that? So I say that to illustrate how important the system is. It wasn't just enough that I wanted to sell food, juices, smoothies, salad. There was a whole lot more that was happening before people take a bottle of juice in the store. It starts from the farm. Um, Even before it gets to the farm inputs from the suppliers, data around seedling, around soil, around weather. That's another part of the system. To people who fund agricultural endeavors, to funders, to the primary farmers themselves, to the people who aggregate, because you have a lot of smallholder farmers in Nigeria. Sometimes it's not economic for them to say, I want to take my own produce to the market. So you have people that aggregate from different small farmers to transporters, logistics, cold chain. Then when it gets to the city, the market, you have like 3-4 big food markets in Nigeria, in Lagos, for example. So there's a whole lot that happens. Which part of the system works great? That's a big question. I'm not sure I can particularly say which part of the system works great. I think that different parts of the system works well, but as a whole, which is where the focus around the food system should be, I think there is a lot more to be done. There's a lot of disconnect from the downstream. So downstream, I would say supply inputs to the farms, the primary farming itself. We can call that down the downstream. Then the midstream is from harvest to aggregators to logistics, the cold chain, processing. There's a process that even happens around the farm before it gets to the factories, and then to the end consumers, which is to the table now. I think that there's a lot of linkage that needs to happen along all of those systems, because you find that one of the things I'm passionate about, and I talk a lot around my social media pages, is the cost of food in Nigeria is too high. And if we cannot feed ourselves, it's very difficult to attain a level of productivity. And so one of the reasons why the cost of food is high is because that system is not tightly knitted together. So you find a produce that is just for illustration 10 naira at the farm gate, by the time it gets to a city like Lagos, it's already close to 70-80 naira, and that is a whole lot. A lot of that can be shortened or reduced by a more working system. So maybe to answer your question, I think that there's a lot of progress that have been made around primary farming, and I think that's working well. Government has, and private, sector has done a lot of investment in, expanding, mechanization. People are going into farming.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on, very well in the primary, production. That's the farming itself, planting, harvesting. And I think that's working really well. But then there needs to be a tight connection from that point to when it gets to the final consumers.
What would you suggest to be a solution to that disconnect? Because like you rightly said, I mean, some of us living in Lagos, I for one, I send money to my mom at home.
A lot of people do that.
To get food stuff for me, because I mean, sending her 30,000 naira to buy me. I'll tell her, okay, I need rice, I need yam, I need this. And then when it comes and I'm like, even at mile 12 there,
Yeah.
I can't get that amount.
So what you have tried to do is to kind of provide a bypass to infrastructure
Yeah.
challenges. So I'll say, what can we do to improve that linkage? The first thing is infrastructure. So for example, I know a lot of families now that um, buy things directly from places like Jos, from places like Kaduna,
Yes.
and it's still not optimal, but it's still better than what they will get in Lagos. What they are trying to do is to basically bypass infrastructure. So I think the first thing is an infrastructure that runs through that system. So starting from transportation, road access to those farms, to to cold chain, which is part of infrastructure. I think that the rail system, the cargo rail system has to be developed, um, because still transporting largely, probably, so I don't have the figure on this, but just on the top of my head, probably close to 90% of food is still transported through cars and trucks across the country. There is no way that will not be subjected to a lot of added cost. So I'll say infrastructure play from transport to power. Power is very important because power, cheap power will aid cold chain, will aid processing, and so the first level is infrastructure. I think the next thing will be around data and data transparency, because I have had situations to work with and have engagement with some government bodies. I know that there's a lot of data that is collected around farming, movement of farm produce and all of that. There maybe like food processing, but a lot of the data is shrouded in secrecy, not necessarily intentionally, but it's not readily available. So if you have trying to find data around food, around agriculture, you have to go to extreme lengths to get reliable and functional data. Maybe that's not peculiar to only agricultural sector. Maybe it's peculiar to a lot of sectors in Nigeria. But I think infrastructure and data are two key things that will be very important for us to bridge that gap and improve the synergy between all parts of that system.
And I think that's I think that's also very important to scaling food systems, because when all these things are in place, it's quite easier to expand, to do more.
Absolutely. Another thing I think is key that I missed, I was going to say three things, is knowledge. So, across the value chain, there has to be, more, dispersal of knowledge. People need to know the things that are important, from the people, from person supplying inputs. When you acquire inputs, how do you store it? What are the right conditions for those inputs before it gets to the farmer? Because you can lose a lot of productivity, a lot of yield, just by how you store your inputs. So there needs to be a lot of knowledge around inputs, farming practices itself. How do people farm? When do they irrigate? When do they weed? All of that. Sometimes a lot of those things look like it's intuitive, but a lot of especially the small older and much older farmers just farm by intuition. There's not a lot of science that goes into it. But I know that a lot of that is changing with some tech platforms involved in farming, private people going into farming, bringing in some new farming practices. And I think that that body of knowledge needs to continue to increase across the value chain, because when we that's why, for example, I really admire this lady, I've forgotten her name. She runs Tomato Juice. She used to be very active on Twitter, and I love how she documented and provides a lot of data around how she's doing from when she collects the input to when they plant to when they harvest, the yield per hectare and all of that. And she continually uses that to improve what they're doing. And it was also a source of data for even people, just for others. And I think that needs to be more entrenched in the agricultural space. So infrastructure, data,
Data
and then
and
knowledge.
knowledge. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. These three things are very important. Now, let me go a little bit into scaling the food system and, enlarging your capacity, as the case may be. Do you think that we have enough conversations around farming and less on the post harvest? You have said a lot of things regarding what the value chain is, and from the inputs to the farming, to the processing, distribution, market, and as it is. Do you think we really focus on the farmers, as the case may be? Oh, farmers are doing this, farmers are doing that, but are we looking at post harvest, all of these things? I mean, I was talking to one of the farmers, and one of the things she mentioned was that storage is an issue. I put in all the work, grow my plants, grow my seeds and everything. I harvest. I don't have access to the market as I should. Then I decide that let me store. But by the time I get back to see, okay, maybe I have a buyer at this point at the large unit or at the lower unit, to check almost all of my inputs, all of my harvest is gone.
It's gone.
So do you think we really focus more on the challenges farmers are facing, irrigation, climate change? Do you think we focus more on those than the post-harvest challenges?
Um, yes. So I think there's a lot of focus because, of course, that's almost like the starting point for the food system. And if you don't even get it right at that point, then it becomes difficult, to even achieve anything post.
After, yeah.
I also think the reason why there's a lot less maybe emphasis or work is that there's a lot of deficit already. If you talk about storage, for example, so although this is not a big produce, but I want to use it as an example because it's an extreme example. There's about 4 or 5 months that strawberry goes in just because we use strawberry, so I know there's almost no cold chain from just for distribution. So it's what they harvest and what gets to the market, right? And how do you build a cold chain for strawberry? You need power.
Yeah.
You need power, and there is no power. So if there is not sufficient power, so what conversation are you really having around cold storage for that produce? So people just keep it and say, let's just invest in growing it, and let's see how we can distribute as much as possible. In fact, yes, strawberry goes for that short period of time, for about 4 months. But if there was proper storage, it's something we can extend, maybe the shelf life, after the season has gone, to maybe another 2 or 3 months. So we're only dependent on importation for about half, of the year. Even because there is no proper, cold chain around strawberry, for example, we can't even, what we plant in just can't even satisfy, 10% of the need, for the country, because there's just so much they can do. Because where did they put it in after harvest? So I think that the infrastructural deficit creates a challenge a lot around what happens post harvest. So it's almost like we jump from the farm to the market, because a lot in that middle is broken. You are still going to transport with a truck from Kaduna to Lagos. Sometimes that truck will use 10 days or more. It will break down. These are things I've experienced. It will break down, and if it breaks down, there's nothing you can do. Especially we're now in the raining season. You have a lot more breakdowns on the road. So unless those things are fixed, then conversations around that middle will almost be like just talking for talking
I
sake.
remember there was a time like that when I was still in livestock. We ordered for some cattle from the north, and we sell meat in large, medium. We sell to businesses, we sell to customers, restaurants. In fact, a lot of customers around Lagos, and we were expecting the cows were weighed. We weighed them. We also do some form of traceability. My company then, we mitigate zoonotic diseases and also offer some form of veterinarian services. So we traced, of course, those cattle. The tags are on them, and they are weighed. They are looking fine and good. But before they got to Lagos, what a deficit! In fact, it was the cows came in skinny, some were dead, and
How are they moved to Lagos?
of course it's struck on the road. Like I was like, were they not fed? Was this because that a lot of money has been put into that? So I really see into what you just explained, and I think that maybe because this the middle looks a little bit invisible, only visible to the people, to the players.
Yeah.
For example, somebody that is naturally not into agriculture, we only know the farmer
The farm.
and the seller.
Yeah.
Because
That's what concerns the consumer.
yeah,
Mostly the seller, they see their
yeah,
vegetables, their fruits.
catfish and
That's
everything.
that's
So,
it. That's what they're concerned about.
I think I want. Should I say that is the major reason why we are not really putting focus on the middle chain, on the transport, on the should I say that's the reason?
I mean, so what I think is that there are a lot of the part of the middle that it's difficult or it's impossible for individuals to solve, for the private sector to solve. You can't build all the roads across all the different value chain. You can't provide the necessary power. We can't solar our way out of cold storage. We can have, I mean, there are many, there are a lot of, successful, solar, companies, building
Yeah.
cold storage, but we can't solar ourselves out of, that infrastructure across the country. So people are doing, the private sector are doing what they can do in bits and pieces, but, as a collective, I think that there's a lot that, the government needs to do in terms of infrastructure. And without that, people will just, we just have to live with it. So that's why it looks like, people avoid that conversation because you don't have control over, or building those infrastructures and making them work. It is still a lot that the government needs to come in and solve on a large scale. And for me, I think it's an emergency because if we don't do that with the growing population, then it's only going to increase the demand for food while the supply continues to be cut short or inadequate.
I'm still going to go back to this conversation, but before now, let's go on a very short break and we will be right back. Welcome back. And we are still talking the food systems and how to scale them sustainably and efficiently. And of course, I am still in the studio with Mr. Olagoke. So, as the CEO of So Fresh, I mean, I wish I can also. I'm going to get there, Sha. We are getting there. I mean, many businesses are getting there. And I see a brighter future in the food system. And that's why we're having some of these conversations, because we need to address a lot of things for people who are growing, who are looking up, to also be able to pick up and work or run with it. Being the CEO of So Fresh, how were you able to scale the business? Now, it's not enough to scale. How sustainable has it been? How have you been able to hold the fort?
I mean, so like any other business, especially in the agricultural space, I think the first thing is to be very clear on which part of the value chain you're playing. So it's important to identify and lock down. I see, this mistake sometimes. Some people want to do everything. So you want to be the farmer, you want to be the processor, you want to be the person that takes it to the market
Market.
and all of that. It's a big value chain. So I think the first thing is to understand where in this value chain am I playing? Where can I create the most value based on who you are, your resources, your ability, your knowledge, all of that? Where can I play biggest value? Where can I create the biggest value? So I think that's the first thing, to identify your area of strength or advantage. The second thing is to understand the market and the sector. So take time to be informed about both the downstream and the upstream to you. What inputs are necessary for you to succeed in that part of the value chain? Who plays an important role? And most importantly, who are your customers? Like every other business, you really need to know who you are selling to, who you are producing for. You really need to know, because that's the only way that you will be able to read them. So you nail down, you know, the part of the value chain you're playing, you nail down, the market and the customer, and then the next thing will be your products. So what do these customers need? How do they need it? When do they need it? Right? And then you are producing for customer. As a business person, agriculture, anything, you need to always be thinking about, what does my customer need? In when you are making, when you are producing, when you are creating products, when you are creating a service, it always has to be in service of the customer. So when you have when you have your customer in mind, the ideal customer, when your customer adopts your product or your services, they like it, then it becomes easy to scale and grow from there, because you are meeting the market needs. So I'll say, that's the next thing you need to do, to create products and services that matches the market and your customer. Then maybe the fourth thing I would say, on this point, is around now building a business, building a company. Whether you're in agriculture or not, there is more to a business than the actual primary selling. It's about the system and structure that guides the business, in terms of how do you manage people, how do you manage operations, how do you make it more efficient, how do you deploy cash within the business, so that you are deploying cash in the most effective and the most productive activities, especially at a certain stage. This is a counsel I give a lot of small or growing business. When you are deploying cash in the business at the growing stage, you have to be hyper focused on what will give me the biggest return in this cash, because you have limited cash as a small business or as a growing business. So every cash you deploy must give the biggest ROI or returns for you in the business. So those are some of the things that is important to scaling and growing a business. And all these things I've said, they don't stop. You have to continuously understand your sector and where you play, because the market changes. You also have to continuously understand the market and customer preference changes. What customer like 4 5 years ago can change, or they may want new things. So you have to consistently stay close to the market, stay close to your customer, and know when things are changing. And then structures and systems as well. You have to continue as you grow. The system and structure that guide your operations become obsolete. They become inadequate to handle growth. So you have to also continue to evolve and grow that. Then I think lastly, I would say, for you as the business owner, it's important that you continue to develop and grow your own capacity, because you don't want a situation where the business outgrows you and then the business becomes stagnant. So you have to invest in yourself, in your knowledge of business, in your knowledge of the sector, and grow your capacity as a leader, so that you can continue to grow and scale that business.
Amazing. Amazing. My next question will have been, what advice would you give to a young person looking to, going into agribusiness. But I think what you have said right now,
Kind of captured it. I'll say, first of all, it's important to know the sector. So read about the sector, seek information, seek knowledge, and then invest in yourself, capacity wise, because the growth of your business becomes limited by your own capacity. Um, there's a lot of, so when you are in, like I said, typical corporate 9 to 5 job, there's almost an expectation that you need to be growing, you are going for training, you are going for courses, you're expanding your knowledge. But I find that many entrepreneurs don't take that route, right? Nobody is born a multi-billion-dollar entrepreneur. You have to learn it, you have to earn it. So you must treat your entrepreneurial journey the same way you would treat a corporate job. You have to grow as an entrepreneur. So invest in your own personal growth. That is really the only way that you're able to grow the business itself.
amazing. To round it up, if we get it right, where do you think Africa's food system will be in the next 5 to 10 years?
Of course, if we get it right, first of all, we should be feeding ourselves primarily, to a large extent. Yes, there might still be need to, import and bring in things, but we should be able to feed ourselves to a large extent. We should be able to feed other parts of the world. I mean, we have a rich, agricultural, base to feed the rest of the world, not just in, primary products, but processing and so there's a lot of wealth that can be created for Africa, through agriculture if we get it right.
That's amazing. And that's very true. If we really want to feed Nigeria, Africa, and even the whole world, we need to put things in place. We need to get things right. And I think do we need more people in the sector, or we can just make do with the people we have right now and get things right?
I mean, you can always do more with people, but there's already a lot of people in the sector, and I think the focus should be on improving the infrastructure, the things we've talked about, and when things start to work better, naturally, more people will come into the sector.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for being on the Grow Podcast. And as we wrap up today's conversation, one thing is clear: agriculture is only the beginning. Or dare I say, farming is only the beginning. The real values lies in how we connect the entire journey from farm to fork. Building scalable food systems means thinking beyond production into processing, distribution, consumer behavior, and the systems that hold it all together. A big thank you to Mr. Olagoke Balogun for sharing powerful insights on what it takes to build sustainable, scalable food systems, food businesses in Africa. To everyone listening, I hope this conversation challenges you to see agriculture not just as farming, but as a complete system filled with opportunity. If this episode resonated with you, share with someone building in agriculture or food. I am Deborah Dairo, and this is the Grow Podcast. Until next time, keep growing, keep building, and keep shaping the future of food in Africa. Bye.